Hi, this is Kylie with Fem and Flow. Today I want to talk more about this current experience, the Earth realm under the false matrix. This episode goes along with my previous episode titled The Duality Trap of Duality. So, as always, I'll get started by giving a lot of different background and then I'll tie it back together later on. All of us ultimately come from oneness, from source energy, from God. God is the great mystery, pure light, and the highest frequency energy where all of creation comes from. Pure God energy is divine feminine energy, the energy of being. God energy is eighth dimensional energy. Dimensions 7 through 1 can be viewed as energetic filters and puts that pure source energy into action. Energy in action is divine masculine energy. Dimensions 1 through 3 are physical, while dimensions 4 through 9 are non physical. Anything outside of pure source energy is technically an illusion. Each one of us, as separate consciousnesses living in physical experiences, is technically an illusion. But even our eternal lives are technically an illusion, but that doesn't mean it's not magical and hugely important. And when I say illusion, I don't mean it's not real. I mean there's so much more going on than we even realize. Illusions can still be part of ultimate truth. Ultimate truth is when pure God energy is in its natural divine order, how it naturally steps down through the different dimensions. We can tie quantum physics in with this idea of illusions. Here are some examples of illusions when it comes to quantum physics. The first example is from Grok AI, and that is wave particle duality. Particles like electrons or photons can exhibit both wave like and particle like properties depending on how they are observed. This duality suggests that the traditional concept of what constitutes a particle or a wave might be an illusion in the quantum realm, where the nature of an entity can depend on the experimental setup. So I talk about wave particle duality and waves versus particles often when I talk about how we create our own reality. So, previously, when I've explained how we create our own reality, I've often referred to this longer way of reality creation. But in recent episodes, I've gotten into a shorter way of this as well. And both take this concept of particle wave duality. The quantum field is also known as the 0 point energy field. In the quantum field, there is endless strings of energy vibrating at different frequencies. And then, essentially, when there's an observer or a consciousness observes that energy, that wave then becomes a particle. In most of my episodes, I talk about how our body is our vessel and it's an electromagnetic system, and our emotions all hold unique frequencies. So when we send out an emotion, that is sending out a frequency into the quantum where there are endless strings of energy vibrating at different frequencies. So there's all these waves of energy. Like attracts like, and once our frequency goes out and attaches to a wave, essentially, it's then transformed into a particle of the same frequency of the emotion that we sent out. And then that is pulled back into our reality. And that's the longer way of reality creation that I've talked about. And like I said, in recent episodes, I've gotten into a shorter way. And this also goes into the concept of wave particle duality. In the shorter way, we tap directly into the quantum or 0 point energy field. We anchor this energy in via our chakra system, and we use our body as the intermediary for reality creation. Our body anchors in the waves of energy, and then our consciousness aka the act of us observing, transforms the energy into the particle we are working with. So essentially, this energy is both in wave and particle form. It just all depends on having a consciousness observing it. You could say our consciousness projects the illusion. And then the next example I'll talk about from Grok AI is superposition. Before measurement, quantum systems can exist in multiple states at once, a superposition of states. This means that until observed, a particle can be in several places or states simultaneously, which defies classical intuition where an object should have a definite state or location. And then the third example from Grok AI that I'll mention is quantum entanglement. When particles become entangled, the state of one, no matter how far apart they are, is instantaneously correlated with the state of the other. This can seem like an illusion because it appears to violate the speed of light limit for information transfer, though no actual information is being sent faster than light. The quote-unquote spooky action at a distance Einstein referred to suggests our intuitive understanding of locality might be an illusion. I've talked about quantum entanglement before on other episodes. Quantum entanglement is the concept behind the idea of twin flames and a higher self. With twin flames, that is the same thing as a split soul. That is when a soul or an information bank splits where one soul will have two different consciousnesses and two different bodies. So those two different bodies and two different consciousnesses are having experiences, and all of that experience is going back to that one soul information bank. And those two consciousnesses are pulling from the same soul information bank. And then quantum entanglement also is the concept behind us having a higher self or a higher version of us that is living in those realms that are fully in resonance with all higher dimensional energy and essentially in the heavenly realms already. That can happen if we are experiencing a double incarnation. And that's if we have a version of ourselves living in these higher realms, fully connected to source, fully resonating with all higher dimensional energy. And then we have a double incarnation. We're already there, but then we also incarnate into this earth experience for a specific mission. So we can be tapping into our higher self for guidance. And then on a bigger picture level, quantum entanglement also explains how actually we all are one. We all come from God or source energy. And then we all are essentially God or source energy having all of these different experiences. So then the next example I'll give from Grok AI is objective reality. Quantum mechanics, particularly through interpretations like the Copenhagen or many worlds, challenges the idea of an objective reality independent of observation. If reality is contingent upon measurement, our everyday assumption of a single objective reality could be seen as an illusion. I've talked about this before, but there is no objective reality. Reality is all observer dependent. We create our own reality based off the emotions that we're generating. We create our own reality based on the long way or the short way that I mentioned. So, either the emotional frequency that we are generating and the emotions that we're living in, or if we've been able to go a step further and directly tap into the quantum field or the 0 point energy field and create our reality that shorter way. Probably for many people, the first step is understanding how this quantum realm works and truly believing that, yes, you do create your own reality and truly understanding all of this information behind emotions and our intention. Once you know that, you will probably just start generating your own reality via that longer way because of the emotions you're living in. And then once you see proof in your reality, like, okay, this is true, this actually does work, then it's probably when you'll start stepping into that shorter way and knowing that'll work too and practicing that. Okay, the last example I'll give from Grok AI is time symmetry. At the quantum level, many processes are time symmetric, can run forwards or backwards, unlike macroscopic events where time's arrow seems unidirectional due to entropy increase. The apparent directionality of time might then be an illusion from a quantum perspective. And you've probably heard this before, the concept that time isn't real. And how we view time in this earth experience is not how time works outside of this. For example, here on earth, we view time as a finite timeline, but from a quantum perspective, time doesn't exist like that. From a quantum perspective, if you're looking at this earth experience, there's no present time. You could go in at any point. You could go to a future time or you could go to a past time. And there is time in the higher realms that fully resonate with all higher dimensional energy, but it doesn't work the same as it does here. Okay, so think about this. This gives more color to the concept of the illusion. When we think about God and quote unquote all there is and infinity, we may think of vast amounts of space, whether that is vast landscapes, oceans, outer space, etc. We may think about millions of years, different planets, etc. But actually, when it comes to these terms, it's not vast at all. It's not vast at all in the sense of space. It is more like taking a pen and placing a tiny dot on a piece of paper. That tiny dot is source energy, and then it is our consciousness that is actually taking that tiny dot and then projecting it in a million different vast ways. This is what it means when I say reality is observer dependent. And I know this is trippy. And I think I talked about this before, but what we from Earth view as outer space and different planets, it's not what we think at all. We can't actually travel to those different planets how we think we would. And it's more correct to say Earth as a realm rather than Earth as a planet. And you could actually think of our sky and our ocean as portals. And you travel to different realms via portals. And I've mentioned this before, but if you think about Atlantis, Atlantis was actually a different realm. It wasn't part of the Earth realm, but you would travel there via a portal in the ocean from Earth. So that's why there's some misconception about that. And I've also talked about this before, I think on the episode titled How to Make Your Home a High Energy Portal, something like that. I'll go back one second. Okay, the episode that I'm talking about is titled How to Make Your Home a High Vibe Sanctuary. And in it, I just talked about energy portal locations and how we think of some different places on Earth as energy vortexes or portal locations. And that's just areas of Earth where essentially higher dimensional energy is very much anchored in. But in the realms that already fully resonate with all higher dimensional energy, every place is essentially a portal because all of that energy is already fully anchored in and fully in resonance, if that makes sense. But here on Earth, since a lot of that energy has purposefully been cut off, then yes, there are specific places on Earth that do have this portal energy. So, under these current conditions on Earth, you would have to travel to the specific place where this high frequency energy is already anchored in to Earth ley lines. But in realms that already fully resonate with all higher dimensional energy and are what we archetypally call heaven, then it's all a portal essentially. You don't have these specific locations you go to have this portal energy. And in that case, we travel to different realms with our Merkaba light body. And if you're interested in this topic, definitely go listen to that other episode I mentioned about how to make your home a high vibe sanctuary, because you can purposefully do things to anchor in higher dimensional energy, and that'll make your home feel so good and very harmonic. And I talk about how these famous portal locations and energy vortexes came to be. And it goes back to the collective consciousness of the people living in that area. And that's a really interesting episode. So definitely go listen if you haven't yet. Okay, I went on a little tangent. Let me swing back for a second. So I talked about that tiny ink dot. You could say that is source energy, and it's not vast in space like we may think of. Our consciousness is essentially taking that tiny dot and then projecting it in a million different vast ways. And I said that is what it means when I say reality is observer dependent. It goes beyond our singular or individual consciousness, though. One obvious thing I talk about nonstop is the fourth dimension and the collective consciousness or collective mind. The fourth dimension is a non physical realm of myths, archetypes, and the collective mind. It's the programming, the matrix, and it sets the vibe or sets up the fairy tale land of a physical experience. So, if you want to think in terms of our individual consciousness and the fourth dimension relationship, you could say the fourth dimensional matrix sets up the game our individual consciousness can go and play in. I've talked about this before, but it's worth mentioning again. We hear the question, are we living in a simulation? Technically, you could say yes, but I don't like the term simulation because that to me implies there is no inherent meaning or like our actions don't actually matter. Because we are currently in the earth realm under a false matrix and in a black hole universe, our actions really matter because we have to flip the polarity. So this realm is created from a white hole universe. So there's a real mission here. It would be more correct to say that experiences in a white hole universe are more like a simulation. And that's because experiences in white hole universes are all bliss, beauty, synchronicity, and heavenly. There are no negative outcomes we must work against, if that makes sense. So while it matters that we have fun and explore all of creation, our actions don't have the same meaning they have in this earth realm currently. Our meaning in white hole universes is just to follow our highest passions, interest, and joy. If you want to think about it all in these terms, in a game analogy, you could view white holes and black holes as two different types of games. You could view white hole universes as a game with all of the cheat codes added, while black hole universes is an expert level game. Maybe you are a gamer and like a challenge, so you might be thinking, okay, maybe a black hole universe isn't so bad. Why get away from it? That's definitely what the dark global elite would want people to think. It's short sighted to have that view without having all other information, though. You can theoretically have an expert level game in a white hole universe. You just change the fourth dimensional programming of an experience to slowly filter out some of the higher dimensional energies. Full bliss is fully resonating with higher dimensional energies. Once you start filtering some energy or distorting it, you will have different outcomes. You're just playing with the illusion. This can be done without risking a shift in polarity to a black hole universe as long as the beings in the experience have fully operating chakras and therefore are fully connected to source energy or God. That's the key. Remember in a previous episode how I said before our universe will shift polarity and switch into an upward spiral of energy, our body's own toroidal flow will start spinning in an upward spiral. Our own bodies are very, very connected to all of this. The whole problem of this universe shifting polarity to a black hole universe in a downward spiral of energy and falling into duality come about because those beings experimented to see what would happen if they cut themselves off from source energy. That caused their chakras to stop anchoring in source energy, and then their own toroidal flow flipped polarity to a downward spiral, and that made them parasitic in nature, needing to harvest energy elsewhere to sustain themselves, and eventually it flipped the polarity of the universe they were in. This shows the nuance behind the game analogy. The point is, if you think different levels of game sounds fun and you think perhaps spending eternity in full on bliss might get old, have no fear. You do get to experience different levels all within a white hole universe. In white hole experiences, we will never have this level of duality though. In black hole universes, we experience the widest range of emotions possible. But by widest, I mean we can experience the lowest level emotions and lowest frequency. We don't experience the highest possible emotions or frequency here. I think I said this in a previous episode, but we can still learn lessons and grow as a soul without experiencing duality and the low level frequencies and emotions that we can currently access on Earth. Here's an example that will add a little context. I'll link this in the episode description, but open up the Hawkins map of consciousness. The Hawkins map of consciousness shows different emotions and the frequency they are tied to. It shows a range from low level frequency of shame to a high level frequency of enlightenment. In the example I'm looking at, it split into 3 different categories. It has spiritual paradigm, reason and integrity, and survival paradigm. The survival paradigm ranges from shame to pride. So within the survival paradigm, starting at the bottom, there's shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. Reason and integrity ranges from courage to reason. Here we have courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, and reason. And then the spiritual paradigm ranges from love to enlightenment. Here we have love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. Duality dives deep into shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, and those are tied to a view on life that is miserable, evil, hopeless, tragic, frightening, etc. In a black hole universe with duality, we have the potential to access these very low emotions and low frequencies. Then, in a white hole universe that fully resonates with source energy, we have enlightenment. Within a white hole universe, Think about a medium level game having a fourth dimensional matrix that distorts or filters in a way where we can access a frequency only down to neutrality. Then, for an expert level game, we can access a frequency only down to courage. See how this could be fun and useful? This could allow soul growth and lessons without going into a black hole and fully falling into duality. Duality can be insane, sick, and sadistic. We do not need this to grow as a soul. Once you see this bigger picture and understand this nuance, you absolutely aren't fooled when some say we need this earth experience to advance as a soul or to grow. Those are all lies to keep us stuck here as an energy supply. And we free ourselves. One of the first steps to freeing ourselves is understanding the truth and the nuance around this truth. And in fact, if you want to play the game in a black hole universe, you nearly can't win. To win, you pretty much have to opt out. You have to avoid duality traps and learn how to surf in the middle and navigate the nuances. And the nuances leave a very narrow path. And to win this game and avoid duality traps and surf the middle and navigate the nuances and follow this narrow path, you really need to dive into paradoxes. You need to understand all of the gray of the situation, the nuances, and exploit that paradox. And a paradox is a seemingly absurd or self contradictory statement or proposition that, when investigated or explained, may prove to be well founded or true. I talk about this on other episodes, but an example of a paradox is when I talk about flow state. And one of my favorite musicians and singers, he has a tattoo that says, "Don't try." And he's not saying don't do the work, follow your passion, and put yourself out there. He's just saying flow with it. Don't try to swim against the current. This musician has totally went against what the music industry standards are and how people traditionally make money through music. He has went totally against that, made his own way completely as an independent artist, and I would say he's truly found that paradox there, and he truly lives in the flow state. So that's what he means by his tattoo saying, "Don't try." And in my previous episode, I called it the duality trap of duality. But that also made me think of a catch-22 and this idea of a paradox. A catch-22 refers to a paradoxical or contradictory situation where an individual is trapped by conflicting or circular conditions, making any choice or solution impossible or self-defeating. The term was popularized by Joseph Heller's 1961 novel titled Catch-22, set during World War II. And I think duality traps and Catch-22s are very similar and go hand in hand. It's also the saying, damned if I do, damned if I don't. And that's when you're going with the dualities instead of finding that nuance. In the book, a pilot who was concerned enough about their safety to request not to fly more dangerous missions is considered sane and must fly. However, if they were insane, they wouldn't care about flying, so they'd be unfit to fly, but would be forced to fly because only the insane would want to fly such dangerous missions. A catch-22 has come to describe any situation where one is caught between two undesirable options, or where the solution to a problem creates another problem, leading to a no-win scenario. I'll give some real-world examples in a minute, but essentially I'm saying we have this duality trap of duality in this black hole experience, And it's almost a no-win situation no matter what we do, because there's all these catch-22s when it comes to an experience that has duality. But what I'm getting at is the way we do win is dive into these paradoxes and exploit them. But it's truly surfing the nuance here. But I'll get more into that. So here are the real world examples. One is job application. You need experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience. Mental health. You might need to demonstrate you can manage your life to get help for mental health, but if you can't manage your life, you're unlikely to get that help. And then there's a legal example. Needing to prove innocence but not having resources to defend oneself adequately in court, where the very lack of resources could be seen as an indication of guilt. So, the characteristics of a catch-22. First one is circular logic. The situation often involves logic that loops back on itself. The next characteristic is no good options. All available choices lead to negative outcomes or back to the original problem. The next characteristic is bureaucratic or systemic. Often involves rules, regulation, or societal norms that create the paradox. Remember that one because I'll come back to it. In essence, a catch-22 is a dilemma where the very conditions meant to solve a problem are what prevent its resolution, highlighting the absurdities in human systems or logic. Duality traps and catch-22s aren't the same thing necessarily, but they go hand in hand. Well, they're kind of the same thinking but different mechanisms. You could say duality traps are the macrocosm, where catch-22s are the microcosm. Duality traps are essentially the inherent nature of black hole experiences. They are traps that come about if you are thinking in black and white terms. Catch-22s are essentially traps set up by the dark global elite. I said previously they often involve rules, regulation, or societal norms. The very conditions meant to solve a problem are what prevent its resolution, highlighting the absurdities in human systems or logic. I'm saying the dark global elite do this on purpose. It is a purposeful trap. I've talked about this before, but it is another one of their traps. The dark global elite will secretly create a problem and then come out and want to look like a hero with a solution, but the solution is actually more control or some outcome they secretly wanted all along. They just needed a way or a reason to get society on board. Just be aware of these traps, be the observer, and be fully in control of your emotions. Heal your nervous system, critical think, and question everything. We need this to be able to navigate all of these traps set up. We must be able to step back, be an observer, and see these traps. Earlier, I said to win in this black hole universe, we need to opt out essentially or exploit the paradoxes. I talk about how the fourth dimension sets the programming of this physical experience. The fourth dimension is the matrix that sets up the vibe and creates a specific fairy tale land. The fourth dimension is also the realm of the collective mind. We need to opt out of being part of this fairy tale land. We need to understand how this experience works so we can see through it. I talked in previous episodes about how it is important to understand the fourth dimension, fourth dimensional influences, and how it all works. That's because it is truly the key to opting out and winning. If you understand the fourth dimension, how it works, and the systems that are set up from this fourth dimensional programming, you'll understand how they want you to think, and then you can find the paradoxes within that And like I said, to win, you want to exploit the paradoxes. The dark global elite will set up all these systems they want you to operate within. And they're going to push you through the education system that programs you to live within those systems. You need to step away from this, see past it, and find the nuance here. Understand what they're trying to get you to do, the system they want you to operate in. Understand the programming that led you there, and then you want to figure out the paradox to exploit it, like I said. The dark global elite will want you to continue to operate in these systems. For example, the musician I talked about earlier, of course, the system is set up to funnel these musicians into the music industry, and then they have a lot of different things that essentially get you trapped in that system. And as you see, if you want to rise to fame, you have to basically be their puppet. This artist said no, and he was offered contracts, but he said no to it. And he totally was an entrepreneur about it and totally went against the system and found the paradox in it. And honestly, having that entrepreneurial mindset and skill set and being able to look at things differently, critical think, and think in that kind of way is actually really helpful here. Because, like I said, you need to understand the systems. And that ties into understanding the fourth dimension. Then once you understand that, you're asking, how do I game this? How do I exploit this? Or how do I make money off of it? And that's what you want to do here. We want to understand the fourth dimension, understand the systems, find the paradox, and exploit it. Maybe it would be helpful to start viewing this experience as a game rather than ultimate truth or true reality. This is not ultimate truth. This is not how eternity works. Like I talk about, this is an inverted experience. For this episode, I don't have a list of things to do to avoid Catch-22s, duality traps, dark global elite traps, or how to exploit different paradoxes. This episode is more to expose them and say you win by opting out, stepping back, being the observer, and understanding the nuances. Because once you do that and you understand these nuances and understand the fourth dimension and understand how all of this works, that's when you can start exploiting the paradoxes. And ultimately, yes, you do win this experience by knowing how to exploit the paradoxes. And also, I should have mentioned this earlier, but the dark global elite will instill a lot of fear around exploiting the paradoxes and going around the system. And actually, that's another paradox because once you step into that fear, you're actually going to get expansion. It's helpful and important to understand the big picture at play here. It helps us to see past all of the distortions and understand the illusions. Understand this all and perhaps start gaming the system. The first way to game the system is to stop falling for the dark emotional manipulation tactics. Understand all of the programming and brainwashing and say hell to it all. Say to yourself, I'm going to be aware and observe, but not let it affect me emotionally. Instead, create your own ideal reality, live in high vibration emotions, ignore societal programming, and do what you want and live in a high vibe way. This will game the system and flip the polarity. This will win the game. Okay, actually, there is a way to avoid Catch-22s. Learn to fully connect to God within and tap into higher guidance. That is the only way you can truly navigate the nuance. Like I said, it is a very narrow path. And this is also how we can learn the techniques to exploit these different paradoxes. And once you see clearly and understand these paradoxes, then that takes away some of the fear. But then you understand it all. And even if there is a little fear, you have confidence that this is the thing. This is where you exploit it. So then you step past that fear and you get expansion. We all have guides and angels to help us navigate here. We are here for a mission. We are the ground crew, and our guides or our angels are essentially our strategic advisors. I talk about how to properly connect to that in other episodes. Specifically, listen to the episode titled The Importance of the Chakras and Grounding Yourself. I also mention on that episode other episodes to listen to. Also, here's the opener I say anytime I am asking for guidance. This is to connect to my guides, angels, and my higher self. And you can do this before meditation or whenever you want to connect. For example, I do this before I write down podcast episodes. I pretty much connect daily and ask for guidance. I'll also write this down and link it in my Google Drive and the show notes. Before I start out, I need to give credit where credit is due. I initially heard the first part of this opener on the podcast AG University, and then I started using that and added some and expanded on it. So here's the opening prayer. Kylie, Kylie, calling on the most loving face, the version of Kylie who through all time and space is ultimately committed to love and grace. I connect to you and I surrender my ego from this space. With every message I receive, I root it in love and give thanks to my angels and guides above, in love and light, and so it is. God, please shine your bright light of protection down around me. I only consent to connecting to energies of the highest vibrations of love, peace, enlightenment, and compassion. It's my interest to connect to my guides. Okay, so that's the opener. And then obviously that last sentence, whatever your intention is, if it's to connect to your guides or your higher self. So I open with that. And then writing is a really good way to get guidance. Start free writing and see what flows. See what pops into your head and just write with an open mind. Meditation or getting your brain waves into theta is also a good way to get guidance. Walk in nature with solitude and mindfulness. See what comes up. Just be in flow state and see what guidance or insight comes up. Just be sure to pair all of this with the info I shared in the episode titled The Importance of the Chakras and Grounding Yourself. In that episode, I talk about how we might unknowingly connect to fourth dimensional beings. So it's really important to do the things I talk about there so we can truly connect with our guides and angels that fully resonate with higher dimensional energy and fully resonate with God and source energy. But so to connect this to what I was talking about, if you're in a situation and you feel like it's a no-win situation or you want to find that paradox to exploit, I really recommend connecting, meditating, or free writing, and maybe that'll give you some guidance on what to do exactly. Learn how to connect to God within and then follow your intuition. And there's some different things that I talk about in the episode I mentioned on how to do this in a very grounded way so you are truly connecting to what you are trying to connect to and protecting your energy and protecting yourself. That's all I have for today. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please leave me a 5-star review and send to a friend. I love you all and have a great week.